How are you?
I'm good.
I really appreciate you doing this. I know it's like, you just get this random message from this dude you don't know, fucking, hey, come and do my podcast.
Yeah,
And I
who
know,
is this?
and
Go
I,
away. Leave me alone. Stop annoying me.
I know you've been on a bunch, and especially with lockdown and a reduced like schedule, that's kind of been this vacuum of space filling up with doing podcasts and Zoom calls and stuff like that. So I do really, really appreciate you coming down here and
You're so welcome.
um, you
Well, I say you're welcome. Depending on the questions you ask me,
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
that'll
yeah.
change.
And oh, by the way, I don't cut anything, so you're in the shit.
Okay, all right. I'll zip it. I'll be very careful. I'll just go yes, no.
Yeah, I'll take the fifth. But so you and I met years ago. You did a 1 day class with Tafta, and that was God, that's 2016, and it's. Man, it had such a lasting impression on me. It was such a great day, and I'd never done any stunt training at all. And of course, that wasn't really, that was the most entry level sort of thing that you could do. But it just, as someone coming out of Tafta, was like, just made me feel more like I just had some kind of understanding of what I needed to do next in that area, and what was, like some of the questions that came your way was like, well, what should we be proficient in, as just regular Joes? And if memory serves me correctly, you said, look, boxing is probably the most common sort of for if it's not a martial arts film, the most common stuff you would do as an actor would be with your fists, right?
Yeah, well, people ask what should I start with, because the idea of that class is a bit of an introduction to, what can I say, the world of action, and people always assume, well, does that mean a fist fight, a boxing match? And no, it could be just that you're a husband and wife and you get slapped, for instance.
Right. Yeah.
So you learn about camera. The camera has no sense of depth. What's the safe distance that you could move your hand past somebody's face with a bit of speed without risk of injury
Mm-hmm.
or whatever? And it's amazing what you said, that when people do the course, they go, I had no idea there was so much in just one slap or one punch. The timing of the reaction, because for people that obviously aren't in the business, they're watching from their seats and everything, and the illusion is, yes, the person actually got punched or actually got slapped, which we know
Mm-hmm.
couldn't actually happen. Well, could, but shouldn't. And that it's about the timing. It's about a sound effect that goes in, and so and it's also, you teach them, even with one move, how do I not look for that hand start to move?
Right, the
Use the
telegraphing, yeah.
peripheral vision. Are you in character and everything? For instance, if it's a slap doesn't just, it's not a premeditated thing. Usually it's out of an
Passion.
emotional
Yeah.
response. Bam, and off it goes. And that takes timing, and to be cognitive of the risk of hitting your acting partner in an actual scene means that you've got to have part of your brain that's dealing with the technical aspect, and part of your brain is trying to remain in character and be true to
Mm-hmm.
the reason for the slap and everything else.
And how your character would respond to being
Well,
slapped, and
exactly. I mean,
yeah.
and that would depend, So it's, again, it's fascinating to get into the whole physical thing, because when I was working with Scarlett, Johansson's, it sounds
Oh,
like a
name
name
drop there.
name drop, yeah. But I said to her, the reason we want you to do the fights and everything is because you're the award-winning actress. You bring the emotion, the
Yeah.
drama, and everything to the scene, which is just as important as any of the physicality. And I said, if I slapped you right now, you would have an emotional response. You'd either be, what the fuck? You'd either be angry, or
Yeah.
you'd be scared I was going to do it again.
Yeah.
And and so that's part of the whole process as well. So getting back to the class, it's really getting the physical aspect out of it, the footwork.
Mm-hmm.
We learned, with boxers, their footwork, I think, is the most valuable thing for an actor in any sort of action scene, or not necessarily even just action. It's where you're in a scene and it's an over the shoulder shot. And again, to explain, that means I've got a camera over my shoulder and we're on
Like a
you and
dirty.
your response.
Mm.
Maybe I'm blocking the actor, or the actor that's in front of me is blocked. Little step drag, just learning to move your feet to sort of unblock and unstack, as we call it, all that comes out of footwork and an awareness of your body and your center and everything else. To move that along, to get into, I think boxing is the best because there's really a fundamental, very, very limited set of moves. You got a jab and a cross, an uppercut and a hook, and you got footwork.
Yeah.
If you get into kickboxing and you're adding knees and leg kicks and high kicks and everything else, if you get into MMA, you're adding grappling in, that becomes quite complex. And I just advise actors that the best place I would start is just do a fundamental boxing class, and it'll really give you some good understanding, of moving and punching, of looking like you know how to throw a punch, because that's also got to be believable if your character is supposed to understand actual combat.
Right, exactly. The amount of boxing scenes that you see with people who are supposed to know, who've got, just don't seem to be protecting themselves or what have you, like they've got this sort of dropped hand because maybe that the director said, look, man, I can't see your face, so let's just keep your hands down. And you're like,
yeah, and you can do that. And this is the thing, I also say to audiences that people in class, that audiences have seen everything. There is no action that hasn't been done. Every boxing movie, kickboxing movie, Vietnam, close quarters combat. So if suddenly before you do anything and you're supposed to be a boxer and you're holding your hands like this, they mightn't be able to articulate why they buy out of it, but they'll go,
They do, right? They just do.
Yeah. They might be able to tell you why, but they just know because they've seen the best and how they shape up, how they hold their fists, and that's why. So it's no different from doing a drama scene and understanding all the subtext. What do I want out of this scene?
Yeah.
What am I skilled at?
When you don't, when you're not connected, and they go.
I mean, because the flip side, I remember doing a fight scene with Benny the Jet Urquidez, and Benny the Jet is like a legendary kickboxing champion. He was undefeated. I had in the Philippines low budget action film, and I get in the ring and I'm supposed to be kind of a street fighter, and I'm fighting this guy who's a legitimate kickboxing champion. So I get in the ring, and you'd have to know Benny, but Benny has this intent. When he puts his gaze on you, he's now a fighter,
Right.
And I remember getting in the ring immediately. I'm supposed to be like hands down, not really know it. Immediately I went, oh shit, right? I mean, so the flip side was true. I was like, oh God, this is an automatic response from me. And I had to reverse that. But yeah, it was pretty funny. So all of that. And it's a fascinating study. I watched, I did a film with Liam Neeson earlier this year, Blacklight. And,
oh yeah, my buddy was on that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was in that, he had a small part, but then the big scene where there's like a trailer park or something like that.
Yeah,
and the dude's got dogs and what have you. Anthony Sharp. Do you know Anthony Sharp?
Yeah, no, I do. Because we were out there, we shot that, and I actually just played a little extra role rather than doing the fight coordinating. I sort of take this AK rifle and shoot this cop car to pieces. That's part of that scene,
Oh, okay, right.
But my point being, that you look at Liam, and people say to me, "Oh, is this going to be amazing?" The fight scenes are going to be amazing. I said, "Well, it depends what you're asking me. How can they when you have a 68-year-old, who's not?" He did box. Liam did box as an amateur, but to what degree, you ask, So the complexity of the fight scenes can only be as much as he's able to do.
Yeah.
But what he brings to it is the drama, The camera loves him. He's so experienced. He's done so many action films. So it can be reasonably simplistic from the physical point of view, but what sells it is his connection with character, and that's just so damn important. People get all caught up in how good do I look with this, but it's what's happening in between the physical, I believe, that tells the story, and that's almost more important than the actual punch or
You're
kick.
going to be a bit more forgiving if you're completely connected and emotionally invested in what's happening.
And it's part of the story. Fights don't start. A lot of the films, I laugh at some of them now, and it's okay. It's what we did, but used to how I always said you had drama, then the drama would stop, and then you'd have a ridiculously long fight scene, and then the drama would continue, and often that fight would almost have no real connection except an excuse
to have a fight,
to beat up five guys,
Yeah.
I think it's different now, it's the coming from, what what caused that fight? What caused the first punch? What initiated? If I was fighting suddenly my brother, it would be a very different intensity to some dude who had just knocked my wife on her butt or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the intent changes, and I really, try and get across to actors how important that is. What's the reason, and what's the story you're telling with the actual physicality?
Well, I watched Taken again the other day for maybe like the fifth time, and I still fucking absolutely love that film. And that's everything that you just said. Every time that he raises a fist, it's totally like to serve the story, to get to the next place, to find his fucking daughter. And man, do you believe him when he punches someone?
Yeah, I had a really good revisit on what should be in an action scene again, working with George Miller on Mad Max, because there was really amazingly good scene at the tanker fight where Tom Hardy's fighting Charlize Theron. And I remember that when George basically took everyone through, it took about 2 hours for him to go through every beat of that fight. And I went, wow. It reminded me of what needs to go into an action scene and what can, and the thought that goes into it. You had to justify to George, well, why is she using a fist? Why wouldn't she use an open hand? She's a female. Tom Hardy was saying, well, why is that person over there? Some of the wives, as it were, in power. Why are they over there? Why aren't they looking at me? In other words, they would go through and justify everything. It can get to be a bit of a pain in the ass because it's very time consuming. But again, you go, wow, that's how high the level of expectation they have out of a scene. George is the director, Tom Hardy is the actor. Charlize was a little different. Her way of working is her want out of that scene was, I just want to fucking kill him. Just let's shoot it. Whereas Tom would go every beat through it. But still, I thought, wow, that's incredible, So it reminded me as a choreographer of the sort of thought I would need to put into each action and justify each move. Like George was like, I don't want anything that's not purposeful. I don't want somebody spinning a weapon just because it looks good. Because why would you do that in an actual fight with the risk of dropping the damn thing? You would hold on as tight as you can. And that was fantastic. I went, wow, that was a good reminder.
Well, that's at the core of their very being at that point in that story, right? Everything is about survival. 100%.
Not how good do I look,
No.
which actors will puff themselves up and get all this. But if you were really surviving, you wouldn't give a fuck what you looked like. It would be, what do I need to do to just survive this situation?
The scene of the film. I fucking love that scene.
Yeah, it took a lot of work.
Oh, I bet. Did you listen to, or did you, have you seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and have you heard Quentin Tarantino's breakdown of the whole Bruce Lee scene? Did you hear that on Joe Rogan recently?
Yeah. What do you think of that before? Oh, God.
Did you know him, Bruce Lee?
No, I didn't. No. Look, I didn't move to California till 1979. Bruce, I think, died in 1973.
Oh,
so shit. I was still in Australia. It was just before the release of Enter the Dragon that Bruce passed away.
That's right. Yeah.
And I know lots of people. Obviously, I did. China O'Brien 1 and 2, Raging On of those films. No, China O'Brien. What's it? Force 5 with Freddie Weintraub, who was the producer of Enter the Dragon, and Bob Klaus, who directed Enter the Dragon. Well, he directed films I did with Cynthia Rothrock. China O'Brien 1 and 2. And Force 5 and that. So I was around, I got to meet people that, of course,
had worked with him,
actively worked with Bruce, and Chuck Norris, who's a very dear friend who also worked with Bruce. So I got to talk a lot. I'm a little reticent to give opinions on Tarantino. I think he's absolutely entitled to his opinion. The only thing, I think people get a bit overly sensitive about so-called icons and legends. I think you can have an opinion of them. I think my feeling from what I've heard is Bruce was I think people misconstrues his confidence to be arrogant, but I think he was that confident in his ability and his martial arts that to some people it came across as arrogance. But if you look at a Conor McGregor or any of those, you could say, oh, what an arrogant prick. But That's part of
Part of it. Yeah.
part of what it takes to have the confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
Have the psychological advantage over your opponent. You're going to get in the ring, and you're going to wreck anybody that dares to stand in your office, as it were, in the ring. So,
Yeah.
getting back to Tarantino, I think he was just expressing an opinion. I understand, Shannon Leonard getting upset. It's her dad. As
Yeah.
even he said, of course,
He
she's
did. Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
defend that.
Mm.
It's a movie.
Yeah.
It's a movie.
Well, that's the part of it that I took the most as someone who's trying to learn about filmmaking and storytelling and what have you. Was I thought it was an interesting perspective that he said, look, if they were in an exhibition match at Madison Square Garden, I forget what his name is.
The stuntman.
The stuntman's going down.
Mhm.
But if they're in the jungle, the stuntman who's killed people,
Whole different rule
that's
set.
a whole different rule. So he wins.
Mhm.
And I thought that was an interesting breakdown. And that he fooled him in that first move. And I was like, not something I would ever have picked up. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. And look, it put you back in your chair to see it happen too. And you're like, oh, that's kind of fucking cool, actually. And it just creates more mystery about his character and that, the scene where he's on the boat with the spear gun and what have you. You don't really know if he's ever killed his wife or whatever.
Yeah.
And then at the end where he smashes everyone to smithereens with a tin of dog food on acid. It's just nuts. So I thought it was an interesting perspective, like from a storytelling perspective. I really couldn't give a shit about the rest.
It's Atkins just said it's a story,
Yeah.
And and again, as I said, it's a touchy subject because, you end up getting all sorts of flack from people that believe certain icons are untouchable. But again, you can have an opinion. I mean, nobody denies the contribution Bruce made to not just martial arts, but action films, I mean, he was the first one to make a punch feel like it lasted 3 seconds longer. Bah, this intensity.
Yeah.
Would you do that in a real fight? I can't imagine why, right?
No, it's
you
cinematic.
Wouldn't see Muhammad Ali punching someone and stopping and shaking. It's a
Unless
movie,
they're knocked out.
No, so, and his contribution was incredible. He was you could call him a bit of a godfather as far as at least expressing on film to mixing martial arts, doing armbars on Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and, in that game at Game of Death, fighting Chuck Norris the way he did. I mean, he just advanced the way we think that action could be portrayed on film. And everybody learned from that. And there's people that have taken it huge steps further, Does that mean, again, you can't have an opinion that's could be construed as somewhat negative? I think people get too sensitive.
Who do you think, like from your perspective in cinema now, does the best job in terms of technique and storytelling in a fight capacity in a martial, like whether it's boxing or whether it's martial arts in cinema now? Who's like the guy that you sit down and go, or the girl and go, yeah, fuck yeah, that's spot on, and wow, I'm really invested.
Yeah, that's a hard one because you tend to take both of those aspects into consideration. Makes it a little more difficult. I mean, we mentioned like a Liam Neeson. He's so believable as a character in the middle of a fight. Providing there's a bit of dialogue and you're telling a story. I think he's amazing. But there's I'm Jason Statham, of course. There's a huge fan base. I'm not as
He's not really
much of a
drama
fan. No, and if I was to look at things that I've just been looking at recently, and they're not in the huge A-list area, but I did a podcast with Scott Atkins, who you might know. Scott's British and just cranking out so many action films. He did a film called Avengement that's on Netflix, and I had a look at that just almost like as a form of homework. And I got to tell you, I was incredibly impressed with Scott. I rang Scott and spoke to him last week and was asking a bit about the action, and it turns out he wrote most of the dialogue as the character, and it's a very contained film. He's a dude that ends up through his brother in prison. He goes in very clean cut. and you learn through his story of escaping and ending up in a bar and confronting the people he wants to basically get revenge on, how he got certain scars. And it's really, you see the journey of him as a clean cut dude in prison, subjected to all the violence and having to fight as a result, and how he becomes the
That's his
character he becomes that
transformation.
you
Yeah.
see in the present. And I thought his commitment to the character was fantastic. I mean, I keep using the word intent, but the intent, I believed, and the fights they're violent. It's an incredibly R-rated film, but I thought the staging of the fights, the camera position, and the believability. Again, you have to. I keep saying you got to be okay with violence because it's very violent, as it would need to be if it's depicting life in a hardcore prison.
Yeah, yeah.
But I thought it was fantastic. So I'm a fan of Scott's. I like Michael J. White. As a heavyweight, I think
Oh, yeah.
his martial arts is fantastic.
I saw a great video of him teaching how to do I'm not going to get the nomenclature wrong or whatever, but a side kick. And he was talking about, you see in films where they swing the kick around. He's like, you've got nothing, like you're going to break a shin, whereas you would know where the knee drives back and then shoots straight out and he kicks the bag off the wall.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, fuck.
Yeah, no, and who else is out there? No, there are a couple that I've been watching, lately. I'm sure there's others, Tony Jaa, but then you're separating the
Still
dramatic
different,
side
yeah.
from it,
Oh, he's
So
ridiculous, that guy. Yeah.
yeah, so to get
The
both
two,
aspects in the
yeah.
one fight, that's a little difficult. And as I said, if I really thought about it, I mean, I look at like Sammo Hung. Sammo Hung, as you know, is legendary Hong Kong action director and performer. And I worked with Sammo in 1984 in a film called Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars. And I watched the journey of people like Sammo on camera. Back then, we used to call it the no, I'm not going to say that now because I get more trouble. But there was a school of acting. It was almost like if you're supposed to be surprised as a bad going, was very exaggerated.
Yeah.
But I've watched Sammo, who's still in his late 60s, doing drama now, and going from this exaggerated style of Hong Kong acting to this totally understated, virtually no movement in his face with the camera moving in, and you see the dramatic effect of his character that he's playing. I'm like, wow, how good
It's
is
really
he?
engaging, yeah.
Jackie Chan did the same thing. I mean, you look at Jackie, it's very over the top kind of when you look at the action of Hong Kong style movies in the 80s and 90s, and then you bring it into more of a reality based context. And I'm so impressed when I see him in The Karate Kid, for instance, or The Tourist. There's films he's done where he brings an almost Western aspect to his dramatic performance.
The
And
Foreigner
I'm like,
was really great.
Foreigner, that's what I meant to say. And wow, how good,
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love to see this transformation. The fact that people that's what makes them so good. They're willing to look and make adjustments to their performances accordingly. And
yeah.
so it goes on, and the physicality, as I said, what we did back in the 80s with crescent kicks and all this.
Oh, yeah.
It's what we did. It's what we did.
And we love to watch it.
You don't know what you don't know, and the fact that Scott and people like this have taken what was done then and just added incredible layers of expertise. I mean, their ability with the placement of kicks and punches, spinning heel kicks. Hats off to you, man. You've taken it to a whole new level, and I just love that. I think it's fantastic.
Well, before we get off this subject, I just have to ask, what did you think of The Matrix when it came out? Like, was that like, were you, as someone who's trained, going, fuck, or were you like, holy shit?
Yeah, again, no, I think it's. I was impressed with it. It's more from a filmmaking point of view. That's
super stylized. Yeah,
it's incredibly stylized, but groundbreaking in what it was trying to
and
do.
the wire work and what have you. And a bunch of people who aren't martial artists as well, which I thought was pretty.
Yeah, I mean, everything. It's again. You look at Hidden Dragon, Crouching Tiger, and people in the West were so amazed, but they don't. If you're not used to that sort of thing, the sort of wire work they were doing in the film like that, they were doing it 10, 20 years already in Hong Kong.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Oh
that.
God, yeah, that
Yeah.
was nothing new, you know.
Oh, okay. But
But
to
it was
us, we
new
were
to a
like,
Western audience that they were exposed to that for the first time. So,
yeah.
but again, it's just been an amazing journey watching action and where it's gone to. I think it's getting back to, as I keep saying, storytelling.
Yeah.
I think you look at the Karate Kid, the first one with Ralph Macchio. For us as martial artists, we're like, oh fuck, that is so fundamental in its action. But because the characters worked and the story worked, the underdog, it's a bit like a karate version of Rocky,
Rocky.
you know.
Yeah.
You went along for the ride and you were okay with the fact that the action from our point of view is very mediocre. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's back to, it has to be, again, getting back to George, his big message to everybody. Every part of the action has to be based on character, on story. And if it's
Mm-hmm.
not based on that, it's not going to work. And I think that's where we're getting to these days. You know, God, as I keep saying, I did a few movies where we knew that as long as you had half a dozen fight scenes, you could sell it. It didn't matter the drama sucked. There was hardly any story. It was okay, but it's changed because audiences have seen it all,
Mm.
and that's what you have to. That's who you've got to impress. And look at Steven Seagal. The first couple of movies, people were like, "Wow," because first of all, he had directors that directed him. Stories are reasonable, but nobody had ever seen Aikido
Right.
on screen. Somebody with their hands down and guys doing amazing flips through these, particular Aiki moves. But you cut to 2 or 3 or 4 movies into it to do the same stuff. It's still just as good, but honestly, no, I've seen that before. What else
Yeah.
can you do?
Yeah. It's his
Hence, they
same
have to
move.
start kicking or punching or whatever. But again, that's the medium you have to impress. It's the audiences. Otherwise, they're not going to come and see your film. So people have to keep reinventing the way action is depicted or the way they do it. And if you don't, you become a dinosaur.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of. There's a film that's like lingering in my mind right now, but I'm just going to make up a hypothetical of someone like. It might have even been. It's the film's not super great. It's called Homecoming. I think it's called Homecoming, and it's got Jason Statham and what's your man's name? He was best mates with Seth Rogen. 127 Hours. Spider Man. What's his name? He's in a lot of trouble for texting young girls and what have you.
Oh,
His
okay.
name will come to me at the moment.
Right.
Oh, I always forget his name. Anyways, it'll come to me. Someone will be watching this going, oh, fucking that guy. But you had this purple patch of Jason Statham where it was just fucking shooting, kicking, and driving and killing and what have you. And then he did this film, Homecoming, and Hummingbird, I think is the other one, where it went back to just very secluded, purpose-driven hints of that thing that he does really, really well in a proper dramatic film.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen him, like, there's another film called London where there's no action and he's got hair and he's a, like, it's with Chris Evans and Isa Fisher. And he's like this accountant who meets this dude in the street and goes to a party and he's impotent and it's really great. And it just flew under the radar. And it isn't till the end where he's coked out of his gills that he beats someone up
right.
at a party. And that's it. You got a little taste of that thing that he does, that savagery that he has, because he's so good at that intensity. And that's akin to what you were saying before, where we're just getting like, they're having to move away from it being flat out all that thing that they do to still have their brand, but just try and diversify a bit.
Yeah, where we try and work now with action is that you should be able to take all the action out of an action film and still have a great story with great characters.
Yeah.
That the action is almost incidental to the story. So the action then becomes just a total bonus,
Yeah, okay.
And it's justified. There's a reason for it. You're behind the characters. You know who you want to win. Who's the violence is justified. All of that, I think, and there's no reason why that can't be done.
Yeah, yep.
There's plenty of examples of movies that absolutely is done, and
I think Equalizer does a good job. Are you a Denzel Washington?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Equalizer is fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Good. 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 Good.
You know, and a great, you know, you look at the Equalizer and he's sitting there and he's compulsive and he lines up the napkin and
Right.
the forks
Everything's
and
meticulous. Yeah.
yeah, there's all those little elements that make it fantastic. But again, yeah, you would like to think all that action is justified, and I think it was well choreographed. And of course,
It's that
again, he's
reluctance to
such a
do
good
it.
actor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that work with look at McLean in with Die Hard. You know, it's an
Oh, yeah.
everyday guy that's thrust in a position where he has to do what he has to do.
Mhm.
It's not like can't wait to beat people up and shoot people.
No. Yeah.
He was forced
yeah.
in a situation, so you go along with it. You know, it's a bit.
Mhm.
Look at John Wick. I mean, the amount of violence in the first John Wick, and it's justified by what? His dog got killed. So suddenly everyone's okay with all the violence because his dog got killed, but it still worked. You
Jesus,
know.
the last one, fucking hell, when that dude gets kicked by the horse, and I'm just like, well,
Yeah, I know. But good stuff, you know, and good on Keanu Reeves. I don't know Keanu, but you know, every person I've spoken to that knows me,
He's an
couldn't
absolute
be
legend.
a nicer guy.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
charity with everything and totally committed. You know, I watched some clips of Keanu getting ready for one of the John Wicks, you know,
Yeah.
doing mag reloads and everything, and you would swear that guy had done it all his life. And the people that know when he first came in to the idea of doing it, he smokes pot. He was overweight. He was out of shape. Good luck to him. Didn't hide that fact. But when he spent so many months
Get
just
prepared.
totally committed and getting prepared
Mm.
with his martial arts, with his action abilities, with his gun handling. And so he did basically all that stuff. So is that somebody crying? You know, you got to applaud that. I love that, you know, and then the results become evident on screen, you know, and, you know, I worked with Charlize in Mad Max, but obviously had nothing to do with Atomic Blonde, but I heard that she also, you know, totally committed to
Incredible film.
to getting ready
Yeah.
for that film. And
Yeah.
one would think, yeah, well, that's obvious, you know, with
I mean,
their performance.
And that's something we were talking about before, and just like you were saying that we've seen it all before, but what's happening now is the development in technology in terms of how we film a fight scene. Like I've watched how they did that. You've seen the film Atomic Blonde?
Yeah.
Yeah. The stairwell scene, like as a single tracking shot, and their choreography in that is fucking unreal. And the way that they did the fight scene in The Kingsman in the car, how he's like hand holding the camera and like jumping in through the top like that, and then he's on something that swings around the outside of the.
Yeah.
I mean, they still might be on a soundstage, but there's an incredible amount of moving parts where he's having to run and jump and move with the camera and focus pull at the same time to get these incredible like internal shots, like,
which is the cameraman is the stunt man in that sense. Yeah, of course.
100%. There's a really good like YouTube channel where they get certain pros in, whether they're special effects artists or stuntmen, and they sit on a couch and they go through and review, you know, some major fight scenes in different films. They did a really great review of the fight scene in Mission Impossible Fallout. Have you seen the most recent one with Henry Cavill and Tom Cruise, and they're in the
I don't think I've seen it.
it's
well, that's awful.
I love the Mission Impossible films, but they have this huge punch up in a bathroom. And I never knew, like, you know, you see people get fucking their heads smashed into a toilet bowl or whatever, and obviously no one's getting their head smashed in. But he's like, freeze there. And he's like, you see that tile? That's a foam tile. And you can just see Tom Cruise's knee press into the, and I was like, fuck, I mean, you would never see that, but it was just so fascinating to see them pull it all apart.
And what people need to realize, by the way, is you need a good budget to be able to do that.
Yeah.
You know, all these lower budget films, you see, we don't have the luxury of weeks of rehearsal. Often you have the day. They won't even hire the stunt people you fight because they don't want to pay them for an extra week. So they'll bring them on the day and you choreograph it on the day. So you get what you get, but you have a budget like Mission Impossible. Yes, you can take care of all that detail.
Can you imagine
all those aspects? You know, otherwise you're kind of limited with what you can do with limited resources, you know. And the only reason I say that is people usually look at anything on film, novice, and believe that you had every facility available to make that the best possible scene. They don't understand that, no, you don't. Everybody doesn't have 3 blocks long trailers and
Yeah, yeah,
all the
yeah.
mod cons that enable you to do something like that to the extent that the bigger films do, it's like, with the latest Suicide Squad that's coming out, there's still a tremendous amount of rehearsal we had for that, not just in choreographing the scene, but working with the actors, working with Margot Robbie, the previous one with Will Smith, there was often months of training and work that would go into prepping the actors for that, choreographing it, setting up a mock thing with boxes and everything in a warehouse
that's awesome.
mimic the set that it's going to be on, so you could bring the environment into the fight, and utilize what would be logically there that you can use, which, by the way, gets back to the Jackie Chan style where, most of Jackie's fights involve props. And he learned that from, he told me he had every Buster Keaton movie, Three Stooges,
Very much so,
all
yeah.
these. And he was a total fan of silent movie where you would see, like, whether it's a Keaton was amazing with some of the stunts they
I've
did
seen some
back
incredible
then,
videos, yeah.
and you would look at that and you say, oh my God, how groundbreaking. But the idea of using the environment in a film like Jackie, you would see him using ladders, and props and umbrellas and everything. He got that from watching the silent movies, because he said to me once, he said, I want to be able to have people be able to turn the sound off, have no dialogue, no music or anything, and still enjoy the actual physicality of an action scene, a fight scene,
I think it's a great test of any scene to be able to do that.
Yeah. And he, I love that he said, I read a review once of Jackie's, one of his fight scenes, and the reviewer said it's like watching a speeding bullet in reverse. It was all about Jackie trying to get away from the antagonist and doing them in as a result, as opposed to just going full force and head on into it. And I thought, how incredible is that, But anyway, we're getting a little off track. But again, the thought that can go into providing, even Steven Seagal, to get back to that, I watched, a lot of his earlier movies, you would just see one or two moves sometimes, incredible elbow, but it was about the guy crying through a door, through a window, over a balcony and landing wherever.
Yeah.
So the story was really the environment, and the effects of that one enormous hit that made it huge, which reminded me again of Bruce going up punch, pulling it back, and shaking like this for 3 seconds. Just added to the whole drama, So it was using that same idea, but a very different way, using the environment of the set. So,
well, it's that same, acting is reacting. Like, if and to counter as well, like you've seen great scenes where someone punches someone really, really hard, and it's this big dude who just sort of stands there, and that has the same impact as well, But like the response is, it's powerful.
I got, I had a call from a producer just a little while ago. Wants me to do the coordinating on a new film, and he contacted my agent and said, "Oh, we really want Rich because we totally want it to be 80s style action." And I, eventually got in touch with this guy and I said, "Well, what does that mean to you? Define 80s style?" And he said, "Well, which again is getting back to what the statement you just made, that where a punch actually has an effect, that you don't hit somebody 400 times and they get up like they've never been touched." And anybody who's been in a real fight, you get
one punch is enough.
Popped, it's going to ring your bell. Yes, often you can keep going. You look at Muay Thai, for instance, people get shin kicked in the head, they get elbowed, and they'll do 5 rounds and keep going. So it's possible. But again, getting back to that style of where a punch actually has an effect. And he reminded me of a fight with Roddy Piper in a film called They Live. I don't know whether you know that film.
No.
There's a knockdown, drag-out fight that seems to go for 10 minutes between these two characters, but they get punched and they go down and they're out of breath and they take a while to get their senses back. And then they get up.
That.
Yeah, and so it was a good conversation to say, that's an interesting thing that we need to be aware of, rather than have two guys that just seem basically immune to the effects of the
Yeah.
concussive effects of a punch, or getting winded, or getting kicked in the leg. Look at that fight with Conor McGregor. You know, the last one to people that follow MMA with Dustin Poirier. Kicks in the, this lower calf, or kick to the high area of the calf, back of the calf. That's what won the fight for Poirier. So kicks have an effect. You get kicked in the leg, it's going to hurt, and it's going to affect the way you move. So to bring that sort of reality in a fight, I think is fantastic.
I've always wanted to ask someone about this leg kicking, because through listening to Joe Rogan, I've sort of found myself come around to watching more MMA. It was always the crowds and the hype and the kinds of nonsense that goes on that puts me off. Because I mean, when I was younger, I did 3 different kinds of martial arts, and I haven't done them for a long time, but I've always been a big fan of the arts. But generally, the kinds of people that would be there losing their minds, and it sort of put me off. And the sort of Conor McGregor hype, and I listen to all that crap. I don't love it. I love the very quiet dude who goes out there and mops the floor with them. But anyways, I've been seeing this leg kick, and the way that they let their leg sort of fall away and to sort of absorb the blow and what have you. But I watched something recently with this guy. He must have copped 20 of them, and he's limping around. And I'm thinking, I'd love to ask someone who knows what they're looking at, going, why doesn't he stop this somehow? What's the counter? Like, surely this dude can just wear him down with this one kick constantly. Can you shed some light on it?
Well, you look at Muay Thai, the first thing you learn is how to leg kick, and the flip side is you learn how to check a leg kick.
Right, yeah.
And that's what it is, which Conor didn't do. Conor has a very wide kind of stance. Right. He's a phenomenal kicker and everything else, but his stance is not really the best against a leg kicker. His leg was very susceptible to that high kick to the back of the calf
and
here.
He doesn't know how to change it.
And it's a flip kick. It's not even a powerful kick necessarily. Poirier would shoot it off the front leg or the back leg. Conor often fights as a southpaw, so he's susceptible to a certain attack on the leg. And again, that won the fight for Poirier. Conor said his leg was just numb. It went completely numb. Leg checking is the secret, but that means adjusting your stance to be able to lift that front leg and check it. You turn the shin out, catch it on the shin, so it often becomes shin on shin or shin against instep of the foot. But that's what you have to do.
And that's what happened to Roy Jones, wasn't it? He leg checked and snapped his shin bone, wasn't it? Maybe is it Roy Jones Jr.? Am I getting the name right?
No, he's a boxer.
Well, no, I've got the names wrong. Yeah. There was a world champion. See, this is
oh yeah, well, yeah.
And he leg checked, and his legs were.
No, I did the color commentary when Stan Longanides, an Aussie legend and world champion kickboxer, when he fought Dennis Alexio, who was actually
commentary. Did
champion.
You say?
Yeah, the color on it, and that was many years ago. And we're looking, and Stan was renowned for having a very powerful leg kick, which again, the difference for those who don't know with say a karate guy would normally kick with the instep, or the ball of the foot. With the shin kicks, in the Muay Thai way, they're kicking with the shin, which is like an iron bar,
Right.
And Stan threw this leg kick. Dennis checked it, and he's broke it in 2 places. Exactly where he checked that kick, and that was the end of the fight.
Oh yeah.
So that's possible too. There's different theories as to why that might have been with Dennis. Anyway, no, I'm not going to go into that story either. But the point is, you can check, and you have to check, against a good leg kicker, or you've got to be aware. It's going to be very interesting, the rematch, to see whether Poirier does go after that same. He knows that Conor would absolutely, because
they've got a rematch, right?
Yeah, that's on this weekend.
That's
tomorrow.
Right.
Okay. Oh, today.
It's today.
Well, in Vegas. So, so it's today. It was like Saturday. I think it was Saturday in Las Vegas.
So Sunday lunch or something then, is it?
Yeah, so tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's Saturday. But so it'll be interesting to see. Conor is a very smart fighter. Right? He would have to have done work. Now, does that mean he's then, with his concentration on avoiding or being aware of that leg kick, leave him open then for something else? Poirier says he's not going to necessarily leg kick a lot, but he's got another little surprise. So we'll see. But so it just gets back to leg kicks have effect. You have to know how to check. or avoid, because it's proven to be such an effective weapon. Benny Okida's, trained with Benny for 30 plus years as kickboxing. He used to call it chopping. He said, big, strong guy. He said, it's like chopping a tree. I start chopping the legs. Because you chop
Knock 'em
that,
down.
especially the front leg, in order to put power into a punch, you have to be able to plant it and ground that front foot and put some weight on it.
Right.
When that thigh is numb or bruised, or the nerve
Lose your power.
system is totally affected and you can't put weight on it, you can no longer really put a lot of power in a punch. So
then you've got to have a backup. You've got to be a good grappler or something like that, is it?
well, in MMA, yeah, and
Yeah.
even kickboxing, you can't, you don't go to the ground. So it, again, depends on the rule set and everything else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So now you've had this, incredible career. Like where is it now for you? Like what's the sort of next 10 years look like for you?
10. Yeah, hopefully.
20, 30?
No, or not as much. Look, my career is, and it's really you're a product of the entertainment environment we're in, where I still love the idea of being in front of the camera. I
Mhm.
like acting.
I started watching Rage last night, by the way.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Because
But
Johhny was on here, and
cool.
Nick Stevens, who was the first girl to get shot in the apartment,
Right.
and I did a web series together.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I know Jai, but anyways, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
the fun for Rage. There's no action for me. I got to play a cop. It's a crime drama, but I just enjoy that as a challenge for me.
So
But
would you transition out completely, or?
what's not up to me is what I would say. I often joke that being 71 years of age now, the roles I get are probably, I'd laugh, it's either an aging gangster or somebody's dad or granddad.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the nature of the business. So you're a product, they don't want to see 70-year-olds going around beating up 20 guys, unless it's incredible. I would like to do a Liam Neeson type film where you have a license, you're somebody's dad, and the daughter's in trouble, so you come out of retirement. So you give a justification.
Cool.
But, so my career has gone more into behind the camera with the fight coordinating, fight directing. And that's fine, to still be in the industry at this stage of my career, after 40 plus years is, thank you. I'm still in the industry and still working and still making a living using my lifelong passion, which has been martial arts and still is. So no complaints,
Yeah. And was that always the plan? Like,
no.
Okay. That's awesome.
No, I got into the coordinating and the fighting just as a mere fact that most of the films I did were of the sort of budget where I didn't have a stunt double. I had to put my own fights together. So I just learned from being on the set, what it was like behind the camera as well as in front of. So it just naturally transitioned into that. And I've worked for, God, nearly 30 years. I've known Guy Norris, no relation to Chuck. Guy's been in the industry as long as I have, and he's usually supervising stunt coordinator, second unit director on all the Mad Max movies, Lord of the Rings films like this. Incredible talent. So I've become part of Guy's team, so he usually brings me on when it comes to putting fights together, training actors. I've got a good track record with getting actors ready for their own on-camera role. So as I said, it's not so much planned as just the way it's gone, for me to have longevity into the industry. And look, I've always said that my whole aim in life was just to be the best martial artist I could be. And I want to say, importantly, what I could be. There's tons that are better than me. There's some that are not as good as me. I've just worked at whatever I can be. I can't throw a jumping, spinning heel kick like a Scott Atkins throws. Who cares? I just do what I do.
You can do.
More of a reality-based close quarters combat, and that's come from 20, 25 years as a personal bodyguard and working doors. I had to learn that side of the game. So that's what I believe I can bring to a character on screen, or teach other characters that are playing that sort of character on screen. Again, I would love to be doing more acting. Johhny Balaz, we did Rage, and he's looking for another suitable script that we could do together, and I would love that. Will it happen? We'll see. I look again, I'm just fortunate to still be in the industry. And as I said, everything good in my life has come out of just being a martial artist as my through line. I started when I was 11 years of age, so we're talking 60 plus years. So to actually be making a living as a result of my abilities as a martial artist you can't ask for more than that.
No. That's I mean, that's the dream, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, I say I don't compare me to anybody else. I hate that. There's been we're talking about Scott and Michael J. White, and I'm looking at podcasts now and people challenging the real fights and they think they're tough. Fucking hell, they're just doing what they do. They're loving, they're passionate, they're great at what they do on screen. Why get into this? Oh, well, is he better than that one? Who would win a real fight? Who gives a fuck?
Did you see? It was a while back, maybe 6 months ago or something. Justin Bieber challenged Tom Cruise to a fight.
Oh, give me a break. Give me a break.
I mean, I would love to see it, but I think Justin's going to the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, it's showbiz. Look at these fights with Mayweather and the brothers.
Oh, the exhibit. That's what Joe Rogan was saying the other day. It's just become a freak show.
It is a freak show, and it puts a black eye on boxing. I love the Mayweather's totally upfront. He says, "I'm just robbing the bank." He says, and he's very upfront about it. It's obviously fixed. There's no fucking way it's not.
Do you reckon? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't. That's what I feel. People can have their own opinions on that, but
it wouldn't have been fixed, though. Would you reckon?
I think it was. I think there was total agreement to not make him look too bad, and for Mayweather to come out okay. You can't tell me that somebody that's as legendary as Mayweather in the realm of boxing rules, not MMA, MMA to be a totally different story in UFC rules, but in boxing rules, somebody with his skill set. I don't believe I was watching a Mayweather doing what he does to his full extent. They did all their press conferences together. They went on tour together. They got the whole walking around, talking shit, talking smack. But God bless them. They made bloody multiple millions of dollars. But do I believe that was real? I just don't. And again, people have different opinions on that, That's not saying Connor's not amazing, but in a different rule set. Is he still a good boxer? Yes, he is. But in Mayweather's camp, an unbeaten, legendary boxer of Mayweather's standard, I just don't buy it. But disagree out there, but I don't buy it,
Well, I think that's so interesting because, I'm looking at it going, I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at. And this is all very interesting. I love hearing the insight perspective, even, listening to Joe Rogan and people like that talk about a breakdown or what have you. And
well, think about too, can you imagine Mayweather risking an unbeaten lifelong legacy, unbeaten record to go in taking a chance of maybe getting knocked out, which Connor's totally capable of knocking somebody out. He's shown that over and over. He's an incredible power, especially in that left hand. I don't believe that Mayweather would go in even risking that sort of an outcome. I believe there's an agreement that we won't make Connor look like ridiculous. It'll go a certain amount, So they both come out looking good. They're both making a lot of money, I mean, there was talk that they believe the ref stopped the fight too soon, with that final sort of stoppage,
well, there was
on the thing. But there's that. And then you look at, the Paul brothers, Logan Paul, one of them calling out, there's no way I couldn't beat Mike Tyson. What? For fuck's sake, any in my right mind going against a Tyson, regardless of his age, that if he was intent on knocking you out, I think you're going to get knocked the fuck out.
You're going to get fucking knocked out.
But what a way to create press.
Oh, well, that's the thing.
If somebody said to me, we'll give you $1 million to get in with Tyson, yes, I'll get in here. But come on.
I mean, that money. Well, there's that little clip of, you can see Mayweather holding him up when he gets tapped or he gets checked or whatever you call it. And he's like, and he just sort of holds him up.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't know. I didn't even watch it. I just refused to watch it. No interest in it. But hey, showbiz, mate. They, good luck to them. They've made a killing. There are enough people interested enough to pay their subscription and watch it. Again, it's entertainment. Hey, how many people watch WWE after so many years? You will get auditoriums full of people that watch that. Anyone in right minds knows it's not real, it's all predetermined and everything, but they're wonderful characters, and it's just escapism to go and see these larger than life characters playing out this scenario, and I think that's what you're seeing with these celebrity matches. That's what I feel. Might be wrong, but that's my opinion,
Yeah. I look, it's not something I've ever dialed into, but especially the rock and roll wrestling and what have you. Although I am quite keen to see the film that Chris Hemsworth is doing with Todd Phillips about Hulk Hogan.
Oh yeah, no, amazing. How about the size of
Jesus Christ? I mean, I'm sorry, Chris, but I think you might be hitting that needle a little bit finally at 39. But
it'll be a fun film. Funny 100%. Story. I'd love to tell a story. I was I worked with Linda Ronstadt for 14 years doing personal bodyguard for Linda. And I remember being the Grammys. Linda was singing, getting an award. Just stop
for 1 second. Who is Linda?
Well, Linda Ronstadt, again, for the young, a lot of the older ones might not know, Linda was as big as Beyonce in her day. She won something like 11 Grammys. Wow. She sang country and western, rock and roll. She did operetta. She did Pirates of Penzance, Joe Papp in Central Park. She was just a legend. There's a Netflix show on, or CNN did, on The Sound of My Voice, which basically covers the career of Linda. But I was at the Grammys with Linda, and I remember standing there as a bodyguard, and we're backstage and everything. I remember going, I just had a feeling. I sort of looked like this, and I'm looking at this arm, and I remember thinking, fuck, that's the biggest arm I've ever seen. And I kind of went like this, and it was Hulk Hogan standing there right next to me. He was there with Cyndi Lauper because they got to be good friends and hung out, And I'm looking and thinking, oh, my Godfather. And the funny part was I said to Linda, I said, you know what? If Hulk Hogan says I'm going to take Linda in the back room and have my way with her, I'd say, I'll probably help you, Mr. Hogan. It was just a feeling of the size of this guy. The guy's a mountain,
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, funny story.
That's interesting because you're not exactly a small dude. So,
mate. Well, that was when he was still wrestling and
juicing.
Massive guy, massive arms and big guy. But again, fantastic character. So to see Chris 100%. Play that, Chris is going to be in the next Mad Max movie.
Yes. Yeah.
That's exciting.
I mean, they started casting for it too. So, my buddy of mine got an audition for it just recently, and he told me an interesting story about the nature of the sides that you were given. There was 3 parts, and it was like character driven, monologue driven, and a scene. None of them from the film. They were all sort of different, and you had to, like, from what I remember him saying was, they wanted to see how much of a character you could create around this thing. And it was really, my buddy said it was the best audition he thinks he's ever given in terms of just like the space he was given to expand on this thing and just serve up something original. Yeah, which I thought was very, very cool.
Yeah, well, because I know in the first one, basically the sides actors were given the audition had nothing to do with the actual film.
Yeah, which I think happens a lot on the bigger films, doesn't it?
I think George is very much about finding actual real-life personalities that are similar to the actual character he wants them to play.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, hence, picking Tom Hardy, because he found Tom was the closest to this kind of frantic character that Mel Gibson was, because remember Mel in Lethal Weapon and all this where
the insanity.
Like, what the fuck is that? He had this frenetic sort of energy, and I believe he thought that, might be wrong with it. Tom was the closest to that in real life, that edgy kind of just.
I wonder why he hasn't come back on, or is it?
No, it's just not about. It's just not part of the story.
Yeah. What is? Did you know?
No,
nah.
Can't tell you. I can tell you it's called Furiosa, so it's based on Charlize Theron's character and how she became Furiosa.
Yeah, okay.
That's the story, but I know that's out there. That's about all I can tell you. So, and the think of her name, who was in Queen's Gambit, the chess
Such a
movie.
great show. Great show. Yeah.
She's playing
I forget
lead.
her name. Yeah, she's incredible. Yeah.
Anya. Oh God, no.
Rubchek.
No, Anya something Taylor or something. But
okay.
she's amazing. I gotta say, what we know about George is he's unbelievable at picking characters that are just on the cusp of doing that.
Yeah, well,
like a Tom Hardy. Tom was not known at all when he picked him for that.
Wasn't he?
Even a young Mel Gibson,
Mel Gibson
right?
for
and
sure.
so
yeah.
he's fantastic at recognizing talent, an amazing sort of talent to put in these films.
Well, my first acting class was with a guy called Miles Pollard, and back in 2014, and he had just taught Courtney Eaton, who was one of the girls,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like she had basically done his class. And she was a model at the time, so she had some connections, and then through Miles got a good agent and got that part. And that was the sort of buzz. But I haven't seen her since. I think she did the big Egypt film with the fella from Game of Thrones, which really, really tanked. And
Gods of Egypt, you mean?
Gods of Egypt. It was the other one where she's like a young princess, and it's the other Perth guy, and it was Gerard Butler and
right.
Anyways, it tanked, and I haven't seen her, but she was great in that film. Are you going to act in that film? You can't take anything.
No, look, who knows? I think character I played in the last one will have a very blip in and out.
Yeah.
Probably it.
I like the screenshot you posted the other day, actually, because I didn't know that you were in the film. I just knew that you'd worked on it.
And Mad Max. Yeah, no, I got to play an Imperator, which
looked awesome.
Yeah, that's another story I love to tell. That when I got to play like Hugh Keays-Byrne, who plays the Immortan in Mad Max. You remember, with a big mask on.
Yeah,
He's our boss because he was in the original Mad Max, the very first one.
Yeah, did he just pass
away?
Came
back. He passed away recently. Lovely, lovely man. What a great man. Used to always say, if you've done it hard, he just said he lived a hard life and he loved every minute of it. He was great, but it was very sad with his passing. I forgot the point I was going to make. What was I saying?
You telling a story about.
Oh yeah, the hair. So I get to play the Imperator, which is really like the bodyguard to the Immortan, Hugh Keays-Byrne character, and we're the same warrior class as Charlize, And originally in that film, Charlize was going to have long hair and dreadlocks and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So cut to, I'm hearing that we have to shave our heads, and I'm like, I said that I haven't had hair that short since I was born, And one day I'm walking over, and I'm trying to justify why an Imperator would have longer hair and we're a more privileged class and everything. George, I'm Richard, and he puts his arm around and walks away. He says, and he ends up showing me an email he'd got from Charlize with a head shaved.
And you're like, fuck.
She had basically decided that she's a warrior class. This hair gets in the way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even have something like that and shaved her head. So that was his way of breaking to me that
it's going.
The hair's coming off. You're the same warrior class, and sorry about that.
You're
and I was like,
that.
Man, So I ended up looking like that.
And it looks fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was good. It was fun. How fortunate to be in such an iconic Aussie action franchise as Mad Max. I mean, it's just a dream come true to be on camera and to be involved in, and all the action and everything else. It was just amazing, right? Tough. I mean, we shot nearly all of that in Namibia, in Africa, which is right down south part of Africa. And you're in a tin can, which is whatever vehicle you're in most of the time in the middle of the desert with dust storms and freezing cold in the morning and night. And, but there you go. It was an incredible experience. So
that's awesome.
Mm.
All right, Richard, man. I think that's probably a good place to
we'll leave it at that. All right. Yeah, we could go on forever, with all the stories.
We're an hour and 20 in. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for doing this. And this has been really good because, before like COVID hit and everything, I was doing one a week, and I was up to sort of like 50 eps, and then the birth of my daughter and COVID came, and then I was doing them remotely. I really appreciate you actually coming along to do this in person too, by the way. And then I was having all these tech issues. I've got like 4 in the can that never made it, sound fucked up or whatever. And then was another lockdown, it was holidays, and I just haven't been able to get back to doing it. And I really miss doing this because it's so valuable, I think, just to have this sort of podcast for all of the crew, and you have always been, and that's why I hit you up, because the word on the campfire is you're very generous with your time, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And I listen, I enjoy just sitting back and having a chat. And for those out there, everything we say, just if anything, we end up with chats like this with a little offensive. It's just an opinion, you know.
That's right. Don't take it so personally.
Just go for the ride. Yeah, don't take it personally or anything like that. But I like this format because I've done so many of these where, well, when did you start training? Who did you start training? But I'm like, oh God, I'm feeling like
throw that question in as a joke at the end.
I sound like a broken record, you know. So it was nice just to be able to chat and touch on some different topics. So I appreciate it.
100%, 100%. I had a guy called, do you know Christopher Kirby?
I don't think so.
American fella, lives here, big tall black dude, like 6'5".
All right, no, I don't. No.
He works a lot with Justin Dix and did like the Blood Vessel, and you know Justin. He's got Wizard of Oz Studios over in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyways, he was an animatronics guy, worked on Star Wars and things like that back in the day, and has built up and is now making films. And he's got this 3 High Noon, I think it's called, something like a vampire western that's been made.
All right,
and they're casting at the moment. Anyway, so I had Christopher on, was the last guest I had, and does he go on a tangent? Like in this forum,
really? Yeah.
Just like and so one of the things I love about doing this is, as an actor, is tuning in my listening capability, you know, because I'm actually doing this speed reading and comprehension class at the moment. I'll end it on this because I think it's interesting. So the whole idea about this podcast is for actors who are really hustling, who are having to diversify their skill set in order just to be relevant, and are trying to get shit made. And it's something for us, you know what I mean, that we can listen to our peers come in and talk about how they're getting shit done and how they're getting it made. Like when you were talking about before, and people don't realize just how much budget is involved in those cool things that we see. When you're trying to get your 10-minute short made with a couple of fight scenes in it, someone goes, nope. That's $50,000. You've only got 10. No, you know.
Yeah.
So there's lots of stuff in that. But I was doing an audition recently for La Brea, and I have this terrible thing where I just flip words, right? It's almost like I'm dyslexic, but I'm not. And once that nerve hits, I will do it 20 times in a row.
Yeah.
I can't seem to break it. And my mate was like, mate, you just don't know what you're saying. You're not getting it right. Like, he really hit me, and I really appreciate that he did that for me, because it made me go, okay, there's a cognitive thing there that I have with learning text and my ability to focus, that needs fine tuning. So I'm started to do this course, and one of the most powerful things that's come out of this course is using a trace finger when I read lines, because I can start reading the first 2 lines. If they're like this, my mind is gone. I'm fucking a million miles away. I read the whole page. I have no idea what I just read. And using this trace finger keeps me completely connected to every word of the text.
Wow, that's interesting.
And then he's like, okay, you're probably using your right finger. Now use your left. And you will help transition your brain to the left side and use both sides at the same time, and your comprehension will come up dramatically. And I went from 80 words, and this is in a script, 80 words a minute to 600 words a minute in a script in about 5 sessions.
Get out. That's interesting.
Yeah. Just learning.
So it helped your retention of the
lines. The first focus was speed, in learning how to read with your peripherals and not actually hit every single word. And then you do like exercises that aren't designed for comprehension, just in terms of, if you read for 3 minutes, then you read for 2 minutes, and then you read for 1 minute. You try and get through the same amount of text. And now he's got you doing these warm-up exercises that help cross over left and right and get you to utilize both. And then once you've read it, like the 4 times that you might read your scene for a script or whatever, then about mind mapping and stuff like that. And I started to draw just little images at the end of each beat. So if I'm searching for because I'm very visual, I was an illustrator when I was a kid and what have you, I start to think about the little house that I drew next to that line of dialogue. All that dialogue comes to me. Whereas before, I'd just be like, so I'm one of those people that just always wants to say it the way that I would say it. And I can't fucking do that. I'm not fucking an A-lister. You know what I mean? I've got to say it how it's been. And I have I just always flip and change mine. So this has been really great. And I'm only halfway through the course. So for anyone out there, if you've got troubles learning lines.
Great little tip.
Jim,
everybody gets stressed over, well, not everybody. There's some that, but I do, just how, different techniques to remembering lines and everything. Because as we know, if you don't know your lines, how can you even start to act, So
that's it. And that's what Anthony was saying. He's like, once you just change the way that you read text, get it down, and then we can explore. But if you're losing the word every time, we can't be free with it. And that's the biggest epiphany that he's had. And in the last 6 months, I mean, he was the lead antagonist in the Les Wogboy film. He was in the Liam Neeson film. He's just booked a series regular in Joe Exotic, so he's going to be alongside Kate McKinnon.
Oh, nice.
He's just a little switch went.
I think, and I think the biggest thing to take away is that you can never stop learning and trying to work out ways to improve, what you do, whether you're a martial artist. This is why we were talking about action. I just say to the class, of actors, I mean, the amount of action dramas, movies and everything that are being made, if you can just have a skill set that enables you to know your way around an action set, that just makes you much more hireable.
Yeah.
It means we don't have to put a stunt double in and look at the back of a stunt double's head. It's you that gets to carry that character through into the action, but don't expect to turn up having no idea of what's involved in an action scene. Go to a gym, do your homework like you're doing, work out a way to improve your ability to learn lines, and all of that. That's what you got to do, if you're serious about, if you think that's your calling is to be an actor and you want to be it. I always say, how badly do you want it? How much work are you willing to do?
That's 100% right.
I mean, and to finish up, that's why I look back at all. If somebody said, oh, do you wish you'd done bigger films? I said, well, who knows whether I could have. But no, in the sense that I realized that I've done something like 80 movies. A lot of them I wouldn't want to see again. But what an incredible journey. And I realized I just wasn't passionate enough about being an actor as I was being a martial artist. If I was, I would have spent as much time in an acting class as I was on the club or dojo floor learning my martial arts. And I'm okay with that. It was really a way for me to make a living and pay the bills and everything, to be able to spend more time doing martial arts. And that's what it is. But the flip side is, if you want to be an actor, there's so many resources out there for you to improve yourself as an actor. I used to watch the Actors Studio. Remember that series?
Actors
my
Studio.
God. And the
Good.
biggest takeaway is some of these great people is how much work they did to get them to where they were at. It didn't, in most cases, just happen out of thin air. And
very few. You don't realize that they've actually been at it for 10 years or whatever. I mean, Dustin Hoffman's story is one of the greats. Like, he was on the boards for 10, 15 years or something before The Graduate came along. And even then, he tells that great story of going back to New York to his apartment where he's got a mattress on the floor and the film hasn't landed yet, and he had to pay for his own car while he was out there and no one wanted him and he fucked the audition and blah, 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 blah. And it was like 6 months of still on welfare before the film landed. And then he was this huge celebrity like that. And everyone's like, where did this guy come from? He's like, well, he's been on stage for 15 years in New York and no one knows who the fuck he is.
I know we've got to finish, but I went to a little seminar with see, that's what happens with age. The names go out of your head.
You need some of that MCT or
The Shining.
Oh yeah. The writer.
No, the lead actor.
George. Jeffrey Rush.
No.
The Shining.
No.
Nicholson.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson.
fuck.
Oh, fuck me. Thank you.
I'm thinking of Shine.
No, and it was his manager was giving a bit of a lecture to different actors and everything, and he said people think Jack just suddenly was an overnight success in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or some of the earlier Easy Rider films. He said for 10 years Jack could not get hired to save his life. He said he would do Shakespeare, he'd do all these different stage things, and he said he'd go in for an audition, he'd call up and say after an audition, whatever their agent's name was, I forget, well, how do we do? And the guy said, oh, well, Jack, they went with somebody else. And he said Jack would say, that's okay, we'll get them tomorrow.
Fucking
But
hell.
for 10 years, he did little Roger Corman films, sometimes 3 days of work and everything. And that's, again, another reminder. It doesn't just happen, What are you willing to do to make it happen? Have the skill set that when you get the opportunity to be in front of the camera, that you are the best version of yourself that you can be.
Fucking A, man. Fucking A. Anthony Hopkins put something out the other day on his page. Just said, just don't ever give up. Just keep doing it over and over and over and over. Never, never, never stop. It was really, really awesome. He's sort of done these little things here and there. I thought his acceptance speech of his Oscar was priceless, having been asleep for it.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you,
Lovely.
man. Appreciate it.